All right, let's get into this. This is an absolutely incredible cosmic story. It's all about a group of survivors who made a profound miscalculation trying to achieve perfection. But in doing so, they accidentally stumbled onto an even more profound truth about how reality actually works.
So this is really the heart of it, right? What happens when you try to force perfection? I mean, think about it. If you had the power to create a brand new universe, what's step one? Do you try to perfect yourself first? And what could possibly be the hidden cost of an ambition like that? For this group, the Sangha, it set the stage for a truly cataclysmic error.
Okay, so let's set the scene. You've got these survivors from a universe that's completely dead. They're safe, for now, inside this vessel called the Supa Ark. It's just floating in this empty, formless void, having escaped total annihilation. They have the tools to start everything over. But first, they make one monumental choice. And, you can kind of see their logic, at least on the surface. To create a flawless, perfect new reality, shouldn't the creators themselves be flawless? They figured any tiny imperfection in their own being would just get copied and pasted onto their new creation. So, step one, purify themselves. And this right here, this is the moment, the act of pure hubris. They had this thing, the Schwinger Forge, a device with enough power to literally forge a new cosmos. But instead of aiming it outward, into the void, they turned that immense creative power inward. They focused it right on their own collective minds. I mean, what a ridiculously audacious move. So, what was the actual plan? How were they going to do this? They called it hardwiring the Trinity Code. Think of it as a 3-step manual for achieving absolute, total control. First, source. They wanted to become infinite wells of raw power. Second, manifestation. They were going to control reality at the quantum level, literally deciding the fate of every single particle. And finally, resonance. The goal was to lock all of existence into a perfect, eternal, and totally unchanging grid. It was an attempt to brute force perfection onto themselves. But, as you've probably guessed by now, this plan, it did not go well. Not at all. In their attempt to become these perfect, flawless gods, they ended up unleashing something else. Something monstrous, born from the very imperfections they were desperately trying to erase. So here's where the math went sideways. They totally misunderstood this key force of the universe they called the churn, which is basically entropy, right? The force of constant, messy, dynamic change. They saw it as a flaw, a bug in the system. But by trying to delete it from themselves, they didn't get purity. Nope. They created a paradoxical pressure cooker inside their own collective mind. And when that pressure cooker blew, something came out. The energy from the forge fractured, and it all condensed along the fault lines of their own suppressed egos, their hidden desires, their fears. The result wasn't perfection. It was the birth of these pagan gods. Incredibly powerful, for sure, but also deeply flawed, chaotic, and just incomplete. And this just shows you the sheer scale of their failure. Look at this. They aimed to become Trinity gods, absolute, harmonized, eternal laws. What they got were pagan gods, basically temporary kings, totally bound by ego and conflict, and fundamentally unstable. The literal opposite of what they wanted. And of course, these new gods immediately started fighting, threatening to rip the entire ark apart. But right at the moment when their own creation was about to completely destroy them, everything changed. The chaos didn't just fizzle out. It was utterly silenced by this overwhelming, absolute presence that just appeared. Just try to picture this scene. You have this chaotic, raw energy tearing the ship apart. Gods are throwing lightning at each other. And then, in an instant, the temperature plummets to absolute zero. The lightning freezes mid-arc. Every particle, every wave of energy grinds to a dead stop. But the Sangha, they're completely unharmed. The real Trinity gods had arrived. But they weren't beings in any way the Sangha could have imagined. They showed up as these colossal, shifting geometries of pure light. These weren't gods with egos or personalities. They were the living, sentient, mathematical equations that actually govern reality. And with one single silent pulse, they just unmade the chaos. It was gone. So with the chaos gone, the lesson began. The true Trinity didn't speak. Instead, they projected a fundamental law of the cosmos directly into the minds of the Sangha, showing them exactly where they went wrong. This was the law. This is what was beamed into their heads. It basically says that all those concepts like absolute, permanent, unchanging, they only apply to the source of everything, the great unknown. The Sangha's fatal mistake was trying to apply that state of permanence to themselves, to the created, manifest world. And that's when they finally understood. That churn, that force of change and entropy they hated so much, it wasn't a flaw to be corrected. It was the engine of reality itself. Without it, nothing can exist, nothing can happen. By trying to become static and permanent, they were basically fighting against the principle of existence. You simply cannot have a universe without the churn. With this new understanding, an even bigger revelation came crashing down. Their epic failure wasn't just a mistake. It was the key to understanding their true purpose, a purpose far, far grander than they had ever dreamed of. They learned that even the true Trinity gods were really just tools, instruments of an even greater power, something called the first designer. And this wasn't a single being, but this vast, ancient collective of architects who exist right on the edge of reality. The Sangha suddenly realized this entity had been subtly guiding them all along, even saving them from their first universe's death, all for a reason. And here it is, the mind-bending twist. They were never meant to settle down and build one perfect little universe to hide in. That whole idea was a complete misunderstanding of their potential. Their entire journey, their survival, it was for something else entirely. Their new mission, as you can see here, was infinite. Instead of hiding from the churn, their new job was to dive headfirst into it, to travel the multiverse, bringing order to chaos, mapping the very fabric of reality. Their job was to expand what is known, and this is huge, to save other awakened beings from making these same exact mistakes they did. Their goal shifted from creating a single static home to riding the endless edge of infinity, forever. And that leaves us with this final, really fascinating question to think about. The Sangha learned that perfection isn't some destination you arrive at. They learned that purpose is actually found in the infinite journey itself. So, if you suddenly discovered that your real purpose wasn't to build one perfect thing, but to explore an infinite reality, where would you even begin? What would you do first?